Boker Tov. Today's daf is daf Kuf Yud Gimel Mציעא. We learned for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael and Asur Matzar V'Shivya. Yesterday we saw the Mishnah. Let's quickly see it again. Amalvas Chavero. If you lend money to somebody, a malv and a lova, lo yamash chenenu el bezin. When the time period for the loan, let's say it was a 6-month loan, and the 6 months is over and he hasn't paid you back, you're allowed to take collateral from him. Now, how do you do that? You're not allowed to go into his house. You have to do it with a bezin. You have to ask the bezin, the court, and the court sends an officer of the court to go take the item. Okay, now we'll see. Can the officer of the court go into his house? That's going to be discussion in today's Gemara. But the man himself, the malv of lo yikanas so you shouldn't go into his house. The pasuk says you must stand outside. This is the pasuk in Perek Chaf Daled, pasuk Yud Aleph in Dvarim. It says, if you lend him anything, you shouldn't don't come into his house. You should stand outside. And the one who owes you money, he will bring you out something. So the Gemara is going to talk about this pasuk Yud Aleph. We're going to deal with that. But the pasuk shot in the Mishnah is you can't go into his house to take collateral, but an officer of the court may. Let's say he had two vessels, two utensils that equal the total amount of the loan. In other words, when he needs them, when the man needs them, you should give him one and keep the other one. That's a term, for example, you return to him his pillow at night. He doesn't need it during the day. And the plow during the day. Now, that the word machresha means plow. We're going to discuss that. The pashut shot is you give him back his plow. The plow, he plows during the day. He doesn't plow at night when you can't see, and he uses the pillow at night. So you give him the items that he needs when he needs them, but keeping the other item. These are both collaterals that you took. We'll see if machresha means literally plow or means something else. Then mace, if the lova dies, you don't have to return it to him because you haven't been paid back. So you can keep those collaterals against your loan. Even when you return these items to him during the time that you after you've taken collateral, you're supposed to return to him the pillow at night, the plow during the morning, during the daylight hours. That's only for 30 days, right? Because the loan was already due at the end of 6 months. The 6 months has come and passed. Now, for 30 days, you give him a break until he can come up with the money. You could sell them. You sell those things and you're paid off with your loan with that money. That's what the Mishnah said. Amar Shmuel. Shmuel says, and interesting, Shmuel says, you know what? Even the shliach bezdin is not allowed to go into his house. Even the officer of the court, who you confirmed that this guy owes you money, the lova owes you money, and you said, listen, he hasn't paid me back, go take something from him. He's not allowed to go into his house. That's what Shmuel says. Amar Shmuel. Shliach bezdin, he can seize from him an item in the street. But to go into his house, mashkuni means to go into his house literally and take out collateral. You can't do that. We learn amalvas chavero lo yamash chenenu. If you lend somebody money, you should go into his house. Ela bebezdin, only with the court of law. The officer of the court could go in to his house and take something out. Amalei Shmuel say no. Ema, read it this way: lo yinach. He shouldn't grab it. In other words, he shouldn't seize anything from him in the street unless it was a court, only through the bezin. Only an officer of the court is allowed to seize something from him, seize the collateral from him in the street. But even the officer of the court cannot go into his house. Now we'll see how does this work with the psukim. We'll see. So the Gemara first says, you know what? Shmuel's probably right. It's not the way Mishnah. Kani Seifa. After it doesn't mean the Seifa. The Mishnah means the next line. The Mishnah said, if this guy owes you money and he hasn't paid you back when the money is due, you shouldn't go into the court. You shouldn't go into his house unless with a court. And then it says, "Lo yikonis lebeso lito meshkano." It says, "Lo yikonis lebeso." The Kani Seifa, "Lo yikonis lebeso lito meshkano." Money. Who are we talking about not going into his house? If you mean the Malva himself. We saw that in the ratio. It says, the first line says, Amalvas Chavero, Lo Yimashchenu El Bezin. You shouldn't go into your house. You shouldn't go into the lover's house, only with the Bezin. Then it says, Lo Yikonis the base, so don't go in his house. Well, you already said, obviously, the Malva is not allowed to go in. He said the Malva can't go in himself. He's got to go via the court. So when it says over there, The second line in the Mishnah, who are we speaking about? Elalav shliach bezin. Must be that the shliach bezin can't go in either. So you see a riot to what Shmuel says that nobody can go into the lowest house. Only the officer of the court can grab something from him in the street, but not in his house. Gemara says that's not a proof of the Mishnah. You can't prove it from the words of the Mishnah, because Dilma, some of the Bafskir said it's this is what the Mishnah means. If you lend money to somebody who doesn't pay you back when the money's due, lo yamash chanenu ela bebezin. You should only take collateral from via bezin. The bezin mash. It's not that the bezin can go in. You shouldn't go into his house only via the officer of the court. It's not mash, but the officer of the court could go in. Ubachov, but the malva, afilun tuche nami lo. You shouldn't even grab something from him in the street. The Ger says gzeira shemi kana es lebeso lito mashkano, because maybe you'll go into his house. In other words, you shouldn't grab anything from the street, because if you feel you're entitled to grab something from the street, maybe he ran into his house and you'll go into his house. And the pasuk says lo savo el beso lavotavoto b'chutz tamod. You must stand outside. So the Mishnah doesn't necessarily mean that the the Mishnah doesn't mean for sure that the shliach bezin cannot go into the house, because lo yikanas beso is going on the malva himself, the balchov, and the idea there is that he shouldn't even take something in the street because he might come to go into his house. That's how you could understand it. So, but Shmuel stands his ground, and Shmuel says that even an officer of the court is not allowed to go into the house. Masar Rav Yosef, another kash. The pasuk says lo yachbol reichayim barechev. Pasuk says over there, even when you take a mashkin from him, you should not take items involved in food preparation. What do we mean by that? We mean that you're not allowed to take, here he says you're not allowed to take the mill. People had mills in their homes, small ones, which they would grind the wheat in order to make bread. So leachbol rechaim, don't take as a collateral rechaim the lower stone, the upper stone of the mill. Don't take those things at all. Now, before we talked about a pillow and a plow that you must return when he needs them, but food items can't be taken at all. As we're going to see, Eretz Hashem on, I think it's Shabbos' Daf. Yeah, Shabbos' Daf. If you look on Kuf Tesvav, the Mishnah on Kuf Tesvav, the second Mishnah says, "Achovlas rechaim over mishum lo sasa." It says lo sach bo chaim rechav b'chaim mishum shnei kelim shnei masachim rechav v'ashit su kelim. And not only those kelim, but anything that are ochel nefesh you can't take. So so we'll see, is a machresha ochel nefesh. So Tosas here, Tosas in Maskeles goes into whole arichas, and he says that that's not really a food. An item involved in food preparation is an item involved directly in food preparation. Knives, scissors, things like that you might use. The thing you're plowing with out in the field that you're plowing and harvesting with it, that's not exactly food preparation. That wouldn't be included. Oh, but the pasuk does say, let's go back to our Gemara now in Kuf Gimel. Masar Rav Yosef lo yachbol rechaim barechev. Hadvar mecher ma'chovel. Smash the things you could take as a pledge, to take as collateral. Lo sachbol beged almana. Pasuk also says, right? Pasuk says there also lo sachbol beged almana. Don't take the garment of an almana. Now we'll talk about that in detail. Also, you're allowed to take it if she's rich or not, etc., etc. We're going to talk about that on Kuf Tesvav, but it says you shouldn't take the garments of a widow. Garments of somebody else you could take. Now, you could take them as a pledge. You can't take food items in food preparation at all, because man always needs those things. Other things you could take. Now, who can go in? Tachbol means you go into his house and take his stuff. Who are we talking about? Are you talking about the Balchov himself, the Malva? You shouldn't go in at all to take a collateral from him. So it can't be them. It must be the Shliach Bezin. The Shliach Bezin goes in. He shouldn't take food preparation items, and he shouldn't take the beged of an almana. But what do you see? It's mashmid that for other things, Shliach Bezin could go in. This goes against what Shmuel said, that even the Shliach Bezin can only take things from him on the street, not in his house. Targum Rav Papa Rav Nachman Kamed Rav Yosef. Either Rav Papa, the son of Rav Nachman, explains from Rav Yosef. Some say Rav Papa Rav Yosef Kamed Rav Yosef. Really, we're speaking about Balchov. In other words, the Shmuel can maintain that the Shliach Bezin is not allowed to go into the house. But over here, then, who are we speaking about? It says, Lo yachbol rechaim barechev. other things you could take. Who are we speaking about? The Balchov can't take anything. That's what it means. It doesn't make to me, Rashi explains, don't make a deal from there that he could take other things. No, he's just telling you that the Balchov himself, if he goes into his house to take anything, he's over on Losavo El Beso Lavotavoto. And if he takes the Begav and Almana, or he takes any food preparation items, he's over on a second lav too. But we're not referring to the Shliach Bezdin at all. The Shliach Bezdin is also not allowed to go into the house. It's just telling you that whoever goes into the house, the Malva can't go into the house. That's a losa say losa loboso. And if he goes into the house, he's over on that, and he's over also on taking the beged of Amana or food preparations if he takes those two. So he's over on two isurim. But we're not speaking about the shliach bezdin at all. Tashma, 3 lines from the bottom page. The pasuk says, stand outside, don't go into his house. It says, the pasuk says, again, pasuk Yud Aleph in Perek Dalet and Form, it says, bachutz ta'amod, he'll bring it out. Now, what does that ish do? Don't I know? If you have to stand outside, how are you going to get the item? Not going to fly into your hands by magic. Elamai, obviously, if you stand outside, the one who owes you the money, he's going to bring it out to you because you got to stand outside. So what does it mean? What is he telling you that for? Obviously, if you're standing outside, so the one who owes you the money, the man who owes you the money, he's going to bring it out. What do you have to tell the ish for? The ish is not going on the lova. The ish is going on the shliach bezdin. You stand outside. The ish is the shliach bezdin, and asher tanoshabal, the one who owes you the money, he's going to bring it out. He's going to bring out the collateral. So it says, "Vayish l'rabba shliach bezdin." My love, shliach bezdin kalova. The shliach bezdin is like the lova. What does that mean? That he can go into the house, right? You stand outside, and the shliach bezdin, the ish is the shliach bezdin, and the lova, they will bring you out the item, which means that the shliach bezdin can go into the house. Against which Shmuel said, Mar said, no, doesn't mean that. You know what? The ish, lo, shliach bezdin kamalva. Shliach bezdin is like the malva, he's got to stand outside. Meaning, how do you explain the pasuk? Bachutz tamod, who? Ata, you, tamod, that means you, the ish, and the shliach bezdin, who's accompanying you. You know, you can't just go yourself. He's standing outside with you. And the lova brings out the item. That's how Shmuel will learn. So all these kashas, we have obviously we have a machlokas here. Can the shliach bezdin go into the house or not? The balva cannot. So these we try to bring proofs against Shmuel, and we answered each one. Now we're going to have another one. Tashma, you won't be able to answer this. Pasuk says, if you take a pledge, the garment of your fellow, the shliach bezdin custom dab. We're talking about the shliach bezdin. He's allowed to go in there. Atam shliach bezdin. Oh, we're talking about shliach bezdin, not custom daber. Is it really shliach bezdin who's taking the pledge, going into the house? Oh, ain't el b'achov. We're talking about the b'achov himself. So Shiur it says lo savot beis lavato and dvarim. When it says the pasuk we just said, don't go into his house to take his collateral. Haray b'achov. We already got a pasuk telling you that the b'achov can't go in. Amani mekayim imchavol tachbol tzamas reacha. Right? Again, what are you going to say? It's three averas over here. Like Gemara doesn't choose that. That's shliach bezdin custom b'daber. Shliach bezdin is we're speaking about the shliach bezdin. He's allowed to go in. In other words, can't even be there because it says imchavol tachbol tzamas reacha. You're allowed to go in if you take the garment. Now, who's allowed to go in? Can't be the malva because the malva says lo savel boso lavaro. You're not the malva's not allowed to go into the house of the lova to demand a collateral. So who is going in? Who's imchavol tachbol smecha? Obviously, it means the shliach bezdin. So this is again Shmuel. Shmuel said even the shliach bezdin cannot go into the house. He can only see something in the street. The malva can't even see something in the street. The shliach bezdin can see something in the street, but he can't go into the house. Here you see, according to this brisa, clearly that the shliach bezdin could go into the house. So Shmuel will answer Tanoi. It's a machlokas Tanoim. You're right. You're right. I'm not. What I say is not universal. There's a machlokas. The Tanya. Shliach bezdin shabal l'mashkan. If shliach bezdin comes to take a mashkan in his house, lo yikaras l'beis l'mashkan ela omed b'chutz. Here's a brisa like Shmuel. Even a shliach bezdin who comes to take the collateral should not go into the house to grab it. Ela omed b'chutz. He stands outside. Ba'ala motzi lo mashkan. And the lova brings out the mashkan shemer b'chutz ta'amod ve'aish. That's what's going on. Who stands outside? The malva and the ish. The ish is the man of bezdin, the officer of the court. Another brisa says, not like Shmuel. Bachov shabal mashkan. If a bachov comes to take a collateral from the lova, lo yikanas beis l'mashkan. He shouldn't do that. Ela om b'chutz. He stands outside. Ba'alo nichnas umotzi l'mashkono. In other words, and the shliach bezdin goes into the house, nichnas umotzi lo, and brings out the mashkan. Shem b'chutz tamod. V'shliach bezdin, right? Let me stand outside. V'shliach bezdin shamashka harei nichlas lebeso. So even if you mean, right? Let me explain that price a little bit differently. Let's go back to the beginning of this second price. We shouldn't go into that mashka alone, but let's you stand outside. The halah here means the lova. The halah will go into his house and make something. Period. Ushliach bezin shamashkan. Ushliach bezin comes to take a mashkan. Hareza nichnas lebeso. So this price, here we have two prices which clearly contradict one another. The first price says that even the shliach bezin is not allowed to go into the house. This price says the shliach bezin shamashkan. Hareza nichnas lebeso. He can go into the house of mashkano. Lo yimashkenenu dvarim shasim b'rechalem. As we said, lo yachboch rechaim barach. The pasuk says you're not allowed to take anything involved in food preparation. You're not allowed to do that. Okay. So what do? But so you're allowed to go into his house and grab stuff, right? However, you must leave basic items for the lova. In other words, we make an assessment. We say, look, you got to take something out. If a guy's got millions of dollars and doesn't want to take it, so you can take out some gold-plated stuff and do what you want. But you have to make an allowance to let him live, as we'll see. For no saying mito matzah, you give him a bed and another bed and a blanket. Tosfos points out that elsewhere and Shas, we only talk about one bed, but here we're talking about two beds. You leave him two beds and a blanket. Ashir for a wealthy person who has a nice blanket. It's a poor person sleeps with, let's say, a mat, so he has two beds and a bed. Lo, when do you leave him stuff? Right? It says all these things you take care of for him. You have to lend him money and be nice to him, as we'll see, based on the pasuk of Gabriel says Kiyamocha, and you have to help him out. And you lend him money, and you have to make arrangements for him, as we'll see, to have a life, right? So you have to leave him a bed, even two beds, in fact. But you don't have to take care of his family, right? Lo avalo lishto, lo levanim nosav. You don't have to take care of his family. Then he goes on, just like we make an assessment for bachov, we also assess for erechim. What's erechim? When you give your value or the value of person X to the Beis Hamikdash, the Torah tells you specifically how much you have to give. 50 shekels for a person from 20 till 60, or till 20 to 50. For a woman, a little bit less, 30 shekels. Torah gives a specific amount. Let's say a guy doesn't have any money. So what do? You make an assessment. He gives at least a shekel, and you make an assessment to make sure that he has enough money to live for 12 months, Tosfos points out. So you got to make an assessment. So he says, just like you make an assessment here for a Balchov, for the Lova, you make an assessment, comes to Erchem. It's more a kloppy lie. Where are you going with this? Just the opposite. The Iker Siddur by Erchem Sid, pasuk that we learn out is because it says, Imachu me'erkecha, if he's too poor from the amount that he has to, of the assessment that he's given to the Beis Hamikdash, so we darshan hechyeu me'erkecha, make him live, sustain him from the erech, meaning you make arrangements to figure out, you make an assessment, you bring in a CPA and figure out how much he needs, etc., for 12 months, and you don't take all his money away. You make arrangements for him. So that's the source. He says, either Iker Siddur, but Erchem said that's where it's going to see on tomorrow's daf. We're going to learn out the assessment that you make for a poor borrower is learned out from the assessment you make for a poor person who was marich. So Iker Siddur, Erchem said, Ela Ema Kedech, learn it this way. Learn it this way. And as after we've discussed, we've had our machlokas about who goes into the house to take it. Does the Lova himself go in, and even the shliach bezin has to wait outside, like Shmuel says, or like the other brisa which says no, the shliach bezin can go in. However, when you go in, you take something from him, you leave him basic living living items, and that he can live with. Basic things that he needs to live. And he says, for example, even the two beds and a mat, or two beds and a blanket. It says, just like you learn up by Erechim, that you assess what he needs, you don't take all his money away. Same thing about Chav. Amar Mar. So what's the business with the two beds over here? You give him a bed and a blanket. What's the second bed for? If you're talking about maybe for his family members. You said you only make an assessment for him. You don't have to. It's not your job to take care of his whole family. Let him go to the Kupat Tzedakah for that. You're not responsible for that. You lent money to this person. So what's the second bed for? It says if it's for his wife, we're at the first of the wide lines on Amid base. Both the beds are for him. Tarti lovely. What does he need two for? One that he eats on. He would eat on beds. They didn't have regular tables. He eat on the bed. Maybe he had a table next to him, but he sat on the bed. One that he slept on. These beds were maybe not fancy beds, but they were at least things that you could sit on and lay down on. So one is to eat on, and one is to sleep on. Why can't he eat and sleep on the same bed? Shmuel, like Shmuel himself said, Shmuel was what we call today a medicine man, a doctor. So he said, I know the remedy for any malady. I know I can fix any problem, any sickness, except for three cases that I have no solution for these three people. If you eat a bitter date on an empty stomach, I have no remedy for that. I guess they didn't have Malox and all those other things in those days, antacids. And a person who ties a flaxen belt or cord that's wet around his thighs, that also, if he does that, I can't help him. I don't know what that's going to lead to. And a person who eats his meal, he has his meal, and he doesn't walk it off afterwards. You have to walk off the meal. So therefore, you have two beds, one that he eats on, and then one that he walks over to. So you move the other bed a little bit further away, by 4 hours, at least 4 hours, at least you walk there. But if you eat, and right where you ate, you just go to sleep right there, I have no solution for him. So that's what the two beds are for, those things that are considered necessary for his life. Okay. Tani Tama Kamei to Rav Nachman, listen to this. Remember, we learned in the Mishnah that he goes and takes the collateral after when the loan is due, right? Then, when he takes the collateral, he's not allowed to take any items involved in food preparation, as we're going to see in the Mishnah in 2 days, any involved in food preparation. And also, he's got to return to him what he needs. He needs the pillow at night, the plow during the day. See, that doesn't really mean plow, but things that he needs. Okay. So you have to return to him. So now he says, I understand. Tanika made Rav Nachman. The Tana learned from Rav Nachman. He says, you're right. Okay, what we just said before, this Brisa, he learned in front of him that what Brisa is. It's just like you make an assessment when it comes to Erica. You don't take everything away from him. You make sure he has enough to live on for 12 months. The same thing for Balchov. You make sure that the Lova can live. Amalei, I understand. Pardon? Amalei, Hash just bunim as a right? You sell his stuff. Hash bunim as a I understand. He says, since we sell it, it's limited, like you said. You sell it after 30 days. If you sell it away, then what are you talking about? Why would you say if he needs a pillow, make sure he has a pillow for the next year or so? What are you talking about? We sell it after 30 days. It's your kasha, right? Hasha's when he must have been delay. What are you talking about making an assessment? We sell off his stuff to pay back the loan. Says, do we really sell it? But it's not Master Sakar Balayla, as the Tanakama said, that you return to him the pillow during the day and the plow at night. Give him the pillow at night and the plow during the day. So smash you give him this, you take care of him. So no, Tanakam Shingmalil, Tanakame. The Tana who learned this Brisa said is going up Shingmalil. Rabbi Shingmalil said you sell everything after 30 days. So he said, I understand, if you sell everything in 30 days, what kind of a sidur are you making him? Like you got to make sure he's taken care of for the next year or so. You sell everything. Tanakama didn't say you sell it. Tanakama said, okay, you take care of everything, and that's it. It doesn't talk about how long, presumably a year at least, right? Shmuel says, no, even himself, only for 30 days, and you sell it all off. So Hashem Shmuel So he asked this kasha, and in front of Rav Nachman, so Rav Nachman said, I understand. What kind of a sidur are you making over here? By Erchan, okay, you make a sidur. Here, according to Shmuel, that you sell it after 30 days, how can you talk about a sidur? A sidur, like, you're gonna make a sidur. You sell the items, the pillow is going to be sold at the 30-day mark, right? The person was sold. And now you're going to take the money and make sure you buy other pillows with it, like Tosa says. I don't understand. The Sektos says, things that are here, so there must you have a pillow right now. So what are you going to do? You're going to sell the pillow and then make sure you buy another one to make an assessment. He needs a pillow at night to take care of that. Doesn't make any sense. Moshe Mechad, you're going to do that. This doesn't make any sense. So in the Chaim country of Shmuel, this business about the Siddur doesn't make any sense. He doesn't answer it. Because, right? He says, so you sell it. As we said, Shmuel said in our Mishnah, after 30 days you sell it. So how can you make a Siddur for him? You sell everything off to pay back the loan. So the Gemara says, wait a minute. Even though Shmuel says you sell everything in 30 days, maybe it doesn't mean you sell it all off and don't leave him anything. That you sell it all off and that's it. Maybe until 30 days, you give it back to him every day, whatever he needs. He needs a pillow at night. You give him back what he needs, and you sell it. In other words, what you do is you give him, let's say he had an expensive, an expensive garment, right? You sell that off and buy him a cheaper one. With the difference, you'll be partially paid off for your loan. Maybe that's what he means. Maybe that's what he says. You sell off doesn't mean maybe you sell off entirely. Maybe it means you sell off and you leave him what he needs, right? What he doesn't really need, that you could sell off and keep as repayment for the loan, and what he needs you give back. Gemara says no, can't mean that. Shmuel would say you only give him back what he absolutely needs, but you could sell off the rest. Shmuel holds that the Jewish people are like princes. Whatever he has, he's used to a gold goblet. You got to give him his gold goblet. Because they dumb rabbi. Rav Shmuel, listen to this. 4 rabbis. Rav Shmuel, Rav Shimon. Rav Shimon is probably Rav Shimon. These 4 rabbis all hold cool spirit. They all hold Kol Yisrael b'nei Melachim. All b'nei Yisrael are considered like princes. Well, princes. Why? Rav Shmuel, the Tanan. We learn in the mission like this. Nan lo es halof. The low esachardo. Are these things muktzah on Shabbos? He says, you're not allowed to move loaf. Loaf is a kind of a bean, a kind of a legume, which has to be cooked, etc. And not chardo, which has to be crushed, mustard beans, etc. Has to be made properly. You're not allowed to move those things on Shabbos. They're muktzah, because you have no use for them. Shmuel mater below. He's mater with loaf. Why? Some rich Jews raise ravens or crows in their house, right? They're pets, and they feed them this loaf raw the way it is. So it's not really muktzah. You can feed your dog, etc. You have to feed your pet. So he says, Shmuel says you're allowed to. So don't say loaf is muktzah. Right? So what do you see over here? Shmuel is mater because shumachal orphan. Who has orphan in their house? Only rich people who can afford expensive pets, right? So Shmuel says that. That all Bnei Yisrael are like that. If it's mutter for one Jew, it's mutter for another. Mutter for a prince, it's mutter for a pauper. Rav Shimon the Tanan Bnei Melachim Sachin Shemen Beral Magamim Sem Shabbos. The princes are allowed to anoint their wounds, their skin wounds on Shabbos with oil, rose oil. That's what they use all week too. In other words, it's not a special thing. They do that all the time. They usually don't have Shimon Omer. Kol Yisrael b'nei Melachim. If princes could do it, everybody could do it. So therefore, it's mutter for everybody to do that on Shabbos. Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Kiva the Tanya. Let's say he was owed $1,000. And he's wearing a fancy garment that's worth 100 mana. That's like 10,000 zuz. Mafshitno some money, you take off the very expensive garment. Or mafishno, so it's laruya, give him something that's fit. He owes money, let him pay back his loan. Right? Pay back the loan, buy him another garment. The Tana Mishum Rabbi Shmuel, the Tana Mishum Rabbi Kiva, Kol Yisrael Ruin they're all fit for that. Don't take away his expensive clothes, even if he should be paid back. So even if you expect to pay him back, obviously it's machlokas about that. Many of us would feel sell the expensive Mercedes and pay back your loan, right? So everybody's that way. So therefore, we see over here that Shmuel would say that maybe he means sell it after 30 days, but give him substitute items so that he can live. No, according to Shmuel, there's nothing which is not fit for him. Whatever he has, he needs. Okay, so really that answer the Rav Nachman who asked the kasha to the Tana. How could you say that you make a siddur for the poor lova? How can you make a siddur for him like you do by Erechim? What do you mean? Shmuel says you sell everything off. and he means that everything means everything. So originally, though, when you thought, well, maybe Rav Shmuel means give him what's fit for him. He's got expensive clothing or expensive habits, whatever. Sell those off and give him what's right for him. And with the difference, you can pay back the loan. And you can sell off what he doesn't really need. So Bishlam McCarver says chazi the beni. I can understand. So sell off the expensive bolster and the pillow and the bolster. Sell off the expensive bedding and buy him cheaper bedding. And with the difference, you can pay back part of the loan. What are we talking about? A plow. A plow is a plow. There doesn't seem to be expensive plows and non-expensive plows. What are you talking about? Last line on the page in Rashi. What is there? A plow apparently was a plow. I guess they didn't have different levels of plow. What are we talking about? We're talking about a silver plow, but it doesn't really mean a plow. He means like a sharp item. A plow in those days was basically a big blade, a big blade. And here also he means a silver one that's used to a scraper. Like people would in the bathhouse when their skin was soft, they would scrape off the dead skin. That's what we mean over here. And Tosfos points out in Amud Aleph that this makes sense too, because what the items that you must return. Remember, food items used in food preparation should not be taken at all as a pledge. The other items, like a plow, you take his pillow, give him his pillow at night when he needs it, and his plow during the day. But the items that we return to him are items that are used for his personal use, like a pillow, a bolster, a bed, things like that. Things that are used for personal use. Not a plow outside. That's not considered personal use. So it makes more sense when the Gemara says this. It's not a dochik answer to say what we mean. It's probably the correct answer, as Tosfos points out. Says Tosfos on our 5 lines to the bottom. And also was personal pleasure. Okay, so you see over here we're talking about items of personal pleasure, and therefore you could say in your Havamina when you said, well, maybe Rav Shmuel means sell off after 30 days his expensive ones, buy achievement. What does he need a silver scraper for? Get him one made out of wood. It's basically like a comb. You can use that. And said that's how we meant to sell. That's what we thought Rav Shmuel meant, but Shmuel cannot mean that because he said whatever's roy, everybody is like princes. You can't take away his expensive items. That is personal use items. Maskevla Rav Chaga. So Rav Chaga now asks a kasha, and Tosfos says that the kasha is not on the Mishnah, because otherwise he could have asked that before. The Torah says, give him back the things that he needs. Don't, if you take we'll see a beged almana, whatever, don't take things that she needs. Don't take his personal things. Give him back when he needs it. So the question over here, what do I have to support you for? Go to the public funds. Why are you coming to me? So Tosfos says that the kasha is not going on the near Rav Akiva B'Shmuel Parach. I understand. He's going to so listen, the guy's got a $10,000 suit, right? And he owes $1,000. You can't take a suit. Sell the suit. Buy him a cheaper suit. What does he need that for? So no, you can't take it away from him. So here Chag was asking, listen, I'm supposed to support you. You owe me $1,000. It's my problem that you had an expensive taste and you bought expensive items and cars and things like that. Why are you coming to me? I'm going to buy Ivra. Yes, the truth is yes. When a person is in need, even if he might have some expensive items in the house, it's stuck for you. When you lend him money and give him back his the items that he needs, the items that he's used to, that's considered stuck for you. Rashi says, it's a mitzvah to give tzedakah. But here the Torah says you should give him back his item, and when you give him back his item, it'll be reckoned it's tzedakah for you. But you were mechuyev to give him back his item. And if you look at the Tosfos on the days, it's not going in the Mishnah. Why did he have to wait till now? What are you waiting for now to ask the kasha name? The Gemara should have asked it before. I can't. Hashem said, give him back. What are you asking me? Let him say this. MK, my matar say Elidir, Star Bakiva Bishmol Parach. The Achri call Yisrael, the Amri, they say, call Yisrael B'nei Menachem, Kul Rui Los, Itzla, B'mai, Kiva Deino, Eino Lobsha Ella Lechavod, no, he's wearing it for beauty, etc. Yama, Lami Yishon Lomer Shekolze, Italava Kasamava, when it's a Malva, I have to support you. You owe me money. You're wearing, you have expensive taste. It's my problem. In other words, others can say, yeah, this is only contrary to Shmuel. Shmuel says you sell off his items, and the others say, Rabbi Shmuel and Akiva says, no, everybody's roy for that, etc. They say the favor. He owes you $1,000, and he's got a $10,000 coat. You can't sell. The Tanakama says you take it off and you give him another one. And Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva say, no. If that's his item, that's what he's used to. You have to support him in the way in which he is accustomed to. And he's a ben melachim. So on that, the Gemara says, what do you mean? I got to support you? Your whole needs, you're coming to me. I got to support you. You owe me money. And you have expensive taste. I got to work. He says, yes. According to them, yes, because the Pasuk says, you have to support him in the way that he's accustomed to. And therefore, the machresha that we're talking about is not really a plow. And we're going to see later on also the items that are also to take from him, food items. Mark's going to say not just a mill, but anything involved in food preparation, even if it's not, but not plowing. Plowing is not direct food preparation. Food preparation is after you plow and after you have the produce, you got to take care of it, even if it means threshing and stuff like that. That's part of the food process, but not the plowing. Yeah.
Nobody will loan anything.
Yes, according to Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva, it'll be a difficult situation, right? That's Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva say that. Not everybody agrees. Yeah.
It's interesting that they don't give an option of multiple payments.
Yeah.
They don't do it.
Yeah. Well,
it's not written.
You could make multiple payments, but who cares? Like the whole point is I want my money. This is not like a loan. We're not going to the bank and saying multiple payments, or you're buying an item and they say, would you like to spread it out over a period of time? You owe me the money. I want the money now. What do you mean multiple payments? What are you talking about? You could. I mean, you could say that if he agrees, he agrees. Here we're talking about when the man doesn't want that. The man wants his money.